UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomenon. Are they extraterrestrial, interdimensional, time travelers in origin, or are they simply a result of top-secret military projects, false flag alien invasions, PSYOP, drones, or other human-made aircraft? Join the discussion now on UAP Crossfire.
Welcome, everybody, to UAP Crossfire, the show that has a bunch of alpha males debating the biggest question in the universe. Are we alone? Are we being visited by extraterrestrials? Or is the government just hiding something that we should know? But that's the way it is. Tonight, we're going to be talking about UFOs, UAP seen all over the world, and what the hell's going on with all these sightings lately that we have gotten. So before I get into that, I want to introduce all the co-hosts of the show. I want to start with the gentleman, as I'm facing to my right, the Padre, Dan Carlson himself. Hello, Dan. How are you?
Great, Chris. I hear you had a little snow out there.
Yeah, just a little, about 3.5.
I think you should be doing the sign of the cross, Padre. Just saying.
Yeah. Throw me a blessing, Padre, for God's sake.
A little ecumenical, because he believes the devil lives in Buffalo.
I always said that's where Satan took a dump. Okay, I mean, because you can't get around the weather. I mean, ever since I moved up here, we've had an earthquake. They've never had an earthquake before. They've had windstorms, snowstorms, you name it, storms. They've had everything that you could think of up here. Anyways, I want to introduce the great man himself, the silverback of ufology, Decker, the silverback Ecker. Oh my God, I couldn't even get that right. He's a great guy. Hello, Don. How are you?
Doing fine, Chris. It's great to be back with the whole crew. We've been missing Commander Cobra for a while, but he's back in the fold.
You know, I was thinking Thanksgiving, I missed one thing. And I looked at my wife and I go, you know what I miss, honey? What? That voice going, them sons of bitches.
Oh, dear.
Just missed that.
Where's my
anyway? And last but not least, he is a great man, Commander Cobra himself. He's back on the show. You know, he's been on these super secret spy missions, whatever he's doing, but he's back with us now. Hello,
God, I wish they were super secret spy missions. They'd be a lot more fun than the run-of-the-mill good things that I'm into. First, I have to say, you all look absolutely fantastic tonight. It's great to see everyone in good health. And Decker was able to fight through the earthquake earlier today in his part of the world. He was explaining holding back the sea as it was splashing up into his neighborhood. Chris fighting the snowmen of Buffalo, New York. Oh, just terrible. And
it's
the
crazy.
Padre, look at he's just absolutely absolutely angelic tonight. I mean, it's just. But I gotta say,
Padre, you're too happy.
Decker the silverback. What is this? What is
this? A little bit of a frown on your face, or
whoa, Chris. What is this Decker the silverback? What is this, Game of Thrones? I mean, I go away for a couple of weeks, and now we come back and we've got these great crimes.
They've been throwing that label. They've been throwing that label on me now for a number of years. So I figured, why not? Why not
lean in? You're going to own it.
Yeah. Why not?
Well, it's great to see you all.
He's my hero. He's my hero, CC.
Well, the greatest audience on the planet. I thank them for the great emails that continue to come in, and please continue them. It's great to see you gentlemen.
It's great to see you. Well, you know what? We got a special treat before we get into UFOs all over the world. We have a great friend of ours in the Hudson Valley area. He's a great ufologist. He's done great work with cryptids, Bigfoot, you name it. He's done it. Ghosts, paranormal. I don't know if he works around with the satanic stuff. Maybe you can ask him that. But let's bring on Al. Where are you, Al? How are you tonight, Al?
Hey, Chris. Hi, gentlemen. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, so I want to start off this show, and we're going to go a round table, asking you a bunch of questions. Just think like you were in Congress getting grilled. Okay, so you'll be getting grilled here in a minute. But let's talk about your story. This encounter you had, a UAP encounter that you got some videos, and the producer will be showing the videos as you asked. So the floor is yours, Al.
Okay, so about a month ago, my wife was getting ready to sit down and she was getting ready to close the curtains, and she seen this something bright in the sky, and she said, what's that?" And I said, "I have no idea." So I went outside. I looked at it. It didn't look like a star or a planet or anything, but originally I just thought it was Venus. It's always Venus, right? Um, and I went out there and I got my star app and I put my star app at it and I aimed it, and it wasn't any of the planets or anything like that. It wasn't a constellation. So I started filming it, and as you looked at it in the sky, it looked like a triangle. But when you stopped filming, and I was using my phone because I had all my other gear packed up. I was going on a Bigfoot expedition, so I had all my stuff packed for that. And I was filming on my phone, and as I looked at it on my phone, and as I enlarged it, it was very fun. It was really weird because I had just done the month before, I had just done the Western UFO conference with Mark D'Antonio. Okay, I went on before Mark, and Mark was talking about how this energy goes around in a circle, the anti-gravity energy, and how it changes colors. And when I zoomed into this thing that looked like a yellow light in the sky, it looked like, and I know this is a weird way to describe it, but it looked like a germ underneath the microscope. Okay, and it had these different color lights going around in a circle. And so I'm filming it, and this was one night, and then I'm looking for it for a week later, and it didn't come around. And one night I go outside to throw the trash, and it's there again, and I film it again. This time I do a Morse code of my tactical flashlight, and it starts to come in towards me. And as I put the flashlight down to pick up the camera, it backed away, and I was like, "Oh wow, that's interesting." And then it came again. The third week, it came again. Every time I'm looking for it, it's nowhere to be found. I go to get the mail out of the mailbox. There it is. I film it again. And again, this is always at night, 6, 7 o'clock at night, every night. And I'm always checking my star map against it, my star app against it, to make sure it's not Jupiter. People are telling me it's Jupiter. It's not Jupiter. It's not Venus. It's not anything. And then, like the fourth time I filmed it, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. I was going to work, and I heard like a little voice in my head say, "Look up." And 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm still asleep. I'm not looking up, and I look up, and there it is again. And I just kind of waved at it. I'm like way too tired to play with this at 4 o'clock in the morning. And then I heard the little voice say, "You should film this." And as I was filming it, it started, moving around, does what it does. And it always looks exactly the same. And this time it actually flashed me. And I was like, "Whoa, did that thing just flash me?" So I stopped filming, and I thought it was just a flash, a light. But when I looked at it on my phone and I rewound it and I played it again, it looked like the craft got like 10 times the size it was originally, and then it shrunk back down. It was crazy. And I got a phone call last night from a friend of mine who works in off the Hudson River. Him and 3 of his colleagues seen a fleet of UFOs over the river. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's Starlink. And they said, no, these things are doing figure eights. One of them went inside the other one and then split in 2, and they're doing all this crazy stuff. So then I called Mark D'Antonio and I asked Mark if he heard anything about this. And he said, yes, he had heard something. He was researching it. And I known about the drones that are going off in Jersey right now. There's a whole bunch of drones going crazy in Jersey. And I knew, I wasn't sure how far away that was from where my friend was, but it was quite a distance away. So then I called Bill to see if he was doing a sky watch or anything, and if he could see if there's anything in the sky. But I wasn't able to get a hold of him today. And when I sent him the videos, he got excited, and told me to come on the show tonight to show it on your guys' show, and
Well,
here
we're
I
glad
am.
to have you. You got a video of this. Let's show the video. So
I got
we
like
know.
4 videos, and the first 3 look exactly alike, and it looks like it's the same video over, but it's not. Each one is a week apart, but the craft never changed what it looked like. Oh, then one night, this is interesting. One night, I grabbed my binoculars that I use when I go to the rifle range, okay, to see downrange, to see how I'm doing, and I give them to my wife, and she looks at it in the sky, and she says it looks like it's got tentacles hanging down, almost like a squid. So I go, what the hell are you talking about? Let me see that. So I grab the binoculars and I look at it, and now the tentacles are up like this, and it's pointing west. It's just absolutely nuts.
Can we play that first video?
You got to take them off mute. Al, what quadrant of the sky are you looking at?
I'm looking south. South. Actually, it was south. And what I was going to say southwest, but it was more south.
Got it.
Yeah, and if Bill can zoom it up and make it bigger.
And it's holding in the same location each time that you've seen it? You'll have to come off mute when the video's on. It mutes you.
That was the one that actually flashed me, that acknowledged me. This was the one that really blew my mind because it actually flashed me. And if you can make that video big. On that very first video we showed that was really far away, if you could zoom in on that, you'll actually see 2 planes, one going east, one going west, going east underneath it, and one going west above it.
Wow.
This is what it looks like when it's blown up. They all look exactly like that. That's what I mean when I say it looks like a germ underneath the microscope.
Any other people report this as well in the area you were in?
Not that I know of. I didn't, go around asking anybody if they've seen anything, but not that I know of.
So nothing showed up in the news or anything.
Not again. Yeah, no, not. I don't really watch the news, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't either. So it's hard when people say, "Have you seen something local?" Unless it has to really get the internet for me to catch it.
Yeah, no, I mean, go ahead.
Al, maybe it's just me, but I thought I saw a red and a green tint at times.
Yeah, no, the color. Actually, there's a color that it changes from red to green, and it goes around and around and around. When you enlarge the video, you can see it's a circular craft. Well, it looks circular with a light that goes around different colors, definitely changing colors. But when you see it in the sky with your naked eye, it looks like a yellow triangle. It's just very weird. I mean, and that one that flashed me blew my mind.
Let me start with Dan. Dan, you seen the videos?
I have.
What questions do you have for Al?
It's interesting. While I was listening to Al, and I recognized something, I'm in the process of uploading videos to Bill of something that looks like the exact same thing that was flying around our area a few weeks ago.
Where are you located?
We're in western South Dakota, Black Hills area.
Oh, wow.
And where ours have been appearing are between Ellsworth Air Force Base and a test range that the Air Force uses in southeast Montana. So my question, Al, for you is, are you close to any Air Force bases or test ranges?
Yeah, there is an Air Force base in Newburgh. Man, I can't think of the name of it offhand. Stewart. Thank you. Yeah, Stewart. Yeah.
Do you know what they do there? I mean, is it a fighter base, a bomber base, a transport?
It's a transport base.
Mainly transport.
Yeah.
Huh. No, it's interesting that we should see something so similar to that in a different part of the country at almost the same time. Intriguing.
It is.
I don't know.
Commander, what do you think?
Well, the interesting connection with the military bases, there has been a onslaught of, man-created terrestrial UAVs that have been all over bases. The latest set is going on in England right now. But what Al has on the picture there, to me, looks like something that has a very exotic power source or some kind of drive system. Mark D'Antonio talks about those colors being the types of reaction from the physics of different types of drives, mainly the gravity drive.
Right, exactly.
Would you be talking about plasma?
Yeah, well, the plasma tends to be for an air breathing vehicle that's using standard type propulsion, and then if you create the plasma field around it, you're able to do that separation of the physical medium of the atmosphere, and then you're flying basically in the vacuum. This appears more in that classical. You have something because it seems very quiet. You didn't say you really heard anything out of it. I mean, that distance, you would know if it was a kind of a standard jet engine or if it had rotor blades or something on it. And it doesn't have that behavior, just based on the pictures that we're looking at. But
no, it doesn't have that behavior. So there was absolutely no sound. I mean, I get the C1s, the C5s, whatever those giant cargo planes.
17. You mainly see C-17s in Europe.
Yeah, and they fly over. I mean, I get flybys all the time.
And what Padre brings up is interesting. Are we looking at the same vehicle moving between vast distances, from the East Coast to the West? Intriguing.
Different, that's for sure. Don, what do you think?
Al, you're in the Hudson Valley, is that correct?
Mid-Hudson Valley, yes, sir.
Okay. When I jumped into this cesspool back in the 80s, okay, one of the early books I read, and I ended up, except for the dead people, I ended up at one point or another meeting and knowing all the players, okay? And Phil Brogno, J. Allen Hynek, and I'm trying to think of the other guy's name, wrote a book about the Hudson Valley UFOs. Now, there were some amazing anecdotes that came out of that book. And one of the things that they zeroed in on were these triangles. Now, have you followed up on any of those triangle cases or sightings?
I haven't looked into any of the stuff that came out of the Hudson Valley in that particular book. I've read that book as well. It was in the 80s, and I didn't really look into it, but I've seen so many different craft up here in the Hudson Valley.
No. I mean triangles. Have you not those old cases, but cases that you came across while you've been an investigator?
Yeah, well, I mean, the cases I usually cases that I'm familiar with are the triangles that I've seen myself, But there are always people always reporting triangles or V-shaped craft or triangles up here in the Hudson Valley all the time. People are seeing them, but I've been up here for 30 years and I've seen every kind of craft you could possibly think of up here. So. Well,
what is your take on these triangle craft? Do you think they're really exotic, or as I was told years ago, and I still don't know where I come down on it, that they were actually black budget project military craft.
The TR-7.
Perhaps from recovered technology, but how the hell are you ever going to figure that out?
Yeah, Don, the way I look at this stuff, when I see a light in the sky, honest to God, I really don't pay any attention to it unless the little voice in the back of my head says, pay attention to this, it's important. And then I'll watch it. And I've had sightings where I've seen every kind of crap, like I said, under the sun. I have a friend of mine who works on he's working in Cheyenne Mountain on the Space Force, right? He's part of the Space Force program, and he swears to me up and down. He used to be an ex fighter pilot, and now he went to work for the private sector, and now the military has sucked him back in. And he swears to me that we don't have any UAPs of our own. I don't know how true that is, but it's all a feeling when I see this stuff. If I'm looking at something that's not making any noise, and I always said that the UAPs that are from extraterrestrial, from deep space, don't abide by our laws of physics. They have their own laws of physics. And I know we're getting closer to that with quantum physics and all that other stuff, but it's all about a gut feeling with me. If I see a V over my house or a triangle over my house, and I don't get a special kind of feeling to me, then I ignore it. Even though
one quick point. Do you have any Starlight equipment that you could go out and look at this stuff in Starlight military?
I have just picked up a new night vision binoculars, and they're pretty high grade. They're not like military grade or anything like that. I had an old pair of first generation stuff that I used to look with, but they're pretty good stuff. They film, and and we were up at Lake George this year, and there wasn't a star in the sky. And then I was looking at it with my night vision binoculars, and I was changing the spectrums of light. You can change the spectrum of light in this particular binocular. And when I got to one of the spectrums, the whole sky just lit up like there was a million stars in it. So it's a pretty good piece of equipment. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to be the curmudgeon here, but I've been doing this stuff for quite a while. And I got to tell you, videos like this, while interesting, they are interesting, haven't progressed basically for 75 years. We've been seeing the same thing over and over and over. And the bottom line is, are we really any closer now in 2024 than we were in, let's say, 1955?
Probably not, but I've never had one acknowledge me with a flash.
Al, was the one that acknowledged you with a flash, was that the one that had the apparent tentacles coming out of it?
Yeah, I believe they're all the same. They're all the same craft. Yeah, I truly believe it's the same craft week after week. I'm
looking here at the report from the congressional hearing and something that Congresswoman Nancy Mace's office released, where it has the different types of UAP classified in a document called Immaculate Constellation, and it references what apparently, or what this whistleblower claims the government classifies as irregular or organic UAP. And these take, it says here, the highly variable form from compact to large and sprawling, seem to have the vision of a jellyfish type or a floating brain with tentacle appendages off it. But what I want to ask you specifically about is that there are apparently some atmospheric phenomena and biological effects that occur with individuals who report these things. Did you experience, while you were observing it, any sensation of warmth or cold?
Not that I remember, no.
Any sense of unexplained smells?
No.
Have you had any residual high strangeness?
Yes.
Okay, would you care to elaborate on that?
Well, I normally when I see a UAP, I'll get a high frequency that goes through my head, either in the right ear or the left ear. Or if I get that during the day, then at night I'll look for a UAP. But after I seen that last one, I had a frequency that went through like my whole head from one ear to the other. And then the other night I had a premonition come to me of something evil at a location that I was about to go and investigate next Monday. So now I'm not going there anymore.
Can you elaborate on that more, Al?
Yeah, I was in bed and was laying in bed and I felt two really large hands grab my ankles to hold me down. And as they felt these hands grab my ankles to hold me down, I felt like a paralysis coming over me. But my left arm was hanging off the bed, and my cat happened to be sleeping on the floor there. And I was petting the cat, and I'm looking at the foot of the bed, and I can't see anything holding me down. So I'm like, what the hell is holding me down? I can't see anything. But at the same time, I'm petting the cat. And then up in the left-hand corner of the room were two yellow, menacing-looking eyes looking at me. So I'm looking at the eyes. I'm petting the cat. I'm still in this paralysis state. And I said to myself, I start questioning myself, like, is this demon? Is this something evil, or is this something alien? You know? And then,
What do you think?
honest to God, I had this conversation with my team psychic, and during this experience, I was asking myself a lot of questions. And the way she explained it to me is, when you're asleep and you're dreaming, you don't ask yourself questions in a dream. So this was a premonition. And she said, wherever you plan on going, don't go. There's something dark waiting there for you. And when these eyes turned into a head, like an electric face, and it had a really big, wicked smile, almost like the Joker from Batman, but really extended, like a smile from ear to ear. And then when the face disappeared, whatever was holding me down let go, and I sat up and I looked around, and I was like, what the hell was that? And I looked down, and the cat was just sleeping on the floor. I got a cat on the floor and a cat on the bed between me and my wife. And I was like, what the hell was that? So the next day I called my team psychic and I said, explain this, and I said, does this have anything to do with the UAP? Because I heard this frequency goes right through my head from one ear to the other. And she said, no. She said, where are you going? And I explained where I was going. I was going to a haunted location in the Catskill Mountains. And she said, don't go. So I said, okay, I won't go.
Interesting.
Tell us about the frequency. Was this a sound or a sensation? What pitch did it have? What duration?
It was just a high-pitched frequency that went through my head. But it was a high-pitched frequency, but it was at a very low volume. It wasn't like screaming. It was low, but it was a high pitch, and it went from one ear to the other, straight across, which is something that's never happened to me before. I've had them in like the right ear or the left ear, but never something that went straight through my head like that. So I don't know if it had anything to do with the UAP or not. I honestly couldn't tell you.
But you said you heard a voice, though, right, Al?
Well, in my head, when I went out that morning, I heard a little voice in my head that said, look up. And when I seen the UAP up there at 4:00 in the morning, I just waved. I said, yeah, I'm too tired for this nonsense. But then the voice said, film this, it's important. So I filmed it.
Al, is this happening did this happen on a schedule? You said like once a week?
It was weird the way it happened. First time it happened was on a Friday. and then it didn't happen again till a Thursday, and then it didn't happen again till a Wednesday, and then the last time it happened was on a Tuesday.
So those are subsequent weeks, like a week apart, so 7 to 10 days. This is kind of rotating around a little bit.
Yeah, and in between, I'm looking for it, and
Sure.
it's never there when I'm looking for it.
Right.
It's always there when I'm not looking for it.
Well, I find that interesting because when Decker was talking about the famous boomerang or triangle sightings, one of the folks that's convinced that was our technology on a test cycle was because of the repetition of the cycle. And what he talked about was very accurate. You brief for a couple of days, you fly something, then you come back and you debrief it, and then you get ready to start that cycle again. And it usually on test flying, it follows that kind of a schedule. And I was interested because we were saying that how that's working up, and it was generally in the same area. And your interaction with it, of course, is very interesting to me because you are alluding to, it's obvious you're tuned in to a lot of things. I mean, that's a gift. Hopefully you think it's a gift all the time. Some folks don't always think it's a gift, but you have a certain interest in it. I mean, to me, the voice you hear in your head is the same thing that I hear sometimes when I'm flying to look at something and I catch something. There's a subconscious cue that a lot of psychologists believe that's something built in when you're into a certain type of activity, or you get a memory kind of stimulus that says you're tuned into this, look here, or do this, or don't forget this.
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's curious. You really got my interest on that being the schedule of events. It's interesting that it follows that pattern, that it's not like 4 nights in a row, that it has this interval time period and it's showing up in the same spot.
Yeah, and the very last time it came back was like that was a Friday. The following Monday came back at night, and I was doing an SOS with my tactical flashlight, and I just sat there for like 10 minutes. I wasn't filming this night. I was just sitting there with my flashlight doing an SOS with it, and it started to come towards me. And at one point, I don't know what happened. I don't know if it disappeared, it went up, it went down, I don't know. But at one point, a plane came out from behind it. It kind of flew over me, and it was obviously like a Cessna, something like that, because you could hear the propeller or whatever, and it had the directional lights and everything. It was definitely a plane. But the weird thing was, the whole time this thing was there and coming towards me, I never seen the plane until it just like came out of nowhere, and flew over me. And I, hand to God, I thought because I had that SOS on that plane as well, because I wasn't really sure if I was seeing a plane or not. And I thought at some point the sheriff was going to come knock on my door to see what the hell was going on, because I was doing.
Al, I got to tell you, for the vast majority of people that are flying now, unless you're my age or older, most people don't know Morse code anymore.
Okay.
That's kind of an old guy's game.
Okay, I'm an old guy. Yeah,
I'm waiting for somebody to come up with the app for all the Gen Xers and Gen Zers. They'll think it's really cool to convert your message on your phone into Morse code. And when my son sees the show, he'll probably tell me, "Yeah, Dad, here's like 4 apps that you can do that with." So don't worry about too many people. Seeing the Morse code and knowing what it is. Okay. Your better chance of seeing a Coast Guard helicopter or a police helicopter show up.
Yeah, well, like I said, I didn't know. Like I said, I never seen the plane in the sky the whole time it was there, and I don't know if this thing just went invisible and moved to the left and let the plane come by, but the plane came like right out from behind it, and the next thing I know, it was flying over my house going, east. No, yeah, it was going east, northeast, and I was like, and I had that SOS on there for such a long time. I said, "Oh man, I hope the sheriff doesn't come banging on the door." My wife would kill me if that was the case.
It's interesting that you say that you, if it kind of communicated with you with a flash, correct?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt. Yeah.
I find that very interesting because I just watched a video of Lou Elizondo testifying in Congress, and they asked him, "Do these crafts communicate?" And he says, "If you mean communication by talking person to person, no." He says, "But the crafts, uh, just like we do when we want to signal a craft, we'll send a couple Raptors up if we got enemy Russian MiGs or Russian planes in our airspace. We send up a couple F-22s. We send signals to them. We don't necessarily communicate with them," he was saying. But he says these crafts are communicating by signaling rather than, a voiceover and stuff of that. And so that's interesting that the Congress would have that question and ask that. And here you are, you're actually communicating with a craft.
Yeah, and I do this all the time whenever I see one.
I think you're on mute, Al.
No, I'm not. You can't
Are you
hear me
on mute?
anymore? No.
Okay, well, we're not getting a voice from you.
Chris, can you hear me?
Commander, can you?
Yeah, I can hear. I can hear him.
I hear everybody.
There we go.
Chris, that might be you.
Yep, it's Chris.
So Al,
So you were saying, Al, go ahead.
Yeah.
I forgot what I was saying. To be honest with you,
You're talking about you on.
Oh
on
yeah, I
these
do this
occasions
all the
you
time.
do communicate or attempt.
I've been doing this all the time. I do this, and sometimes I'll do it with the headlights in my car. And I don't know why I do it. It's just second nature to me to go out there and flash some signals. Whether it's a Morse code or not, or just doing a flash. We did this one year at the Pine Bush UFO Fair, me and my partner, and we did it. And we brought a craft in and at Pine Bush too. And there was 100 people in the park that seen it. And we would do a flash with the flashlight, and it would flash back the same flash, same thing that we did. And the last time it flashed, it lit up a giant baseball field like it was daytime, and then boom, it was gone. So.
On that occasion, any sound from the vehicle?
No. But we had the chief of police there. We had a German television company there filming, and there was like 100 people in the park. And I had a laser pointer, and I would point to like one mountain range and to the other and back, and it would zip from one mountain top to the other and back. It was doing all kinds of maneuvers and stuff, and it was an amazing night. It was absolutely amazing.
Sounds it.
Yeah.
The aliens must have been having a little R&R there, huh?
Yeah. So, it was a UFO fair. So I said, let's do a CE5 and see what happens. And, we got lucky.
So, Al, why I have you and wait for Chris to come back, do you are you in the school or in the thought process that this is all interconnected? Since you spend a lot of time in the cryptid and paranormal world, do you see that there's overlap, intersection with this?
Absolutely.
Disclosure. I mean, that's my take on most.
I believe it's all connected. Absolutely, yes. All the high strangeness. Yeah, absolutely.
From one source, Al, or multiple sources?
Multiple sources. Absolutely. Yeah.
And what's your take? I'll turn this over to Padre because he's our resident expert. But what's your take on the good versus evil? Do you think that there's a combination of forces here that you're encountering that we're all dealing with? That there is.
I think there's good and bad. I think there's positive and negative, good and evil, however you want to, in the universe. I think it's out there. I think it's just part of the DNA of the universe. And I think, it's here as well.
I'd like you to take a look at a video, Al.
Absolutely.
Bill's got it ready to go here of this thing that was seen here around Belfouche. Go ahead and play the, I think it's.
Oh no, it's cruising.
The space station goes at 25,000 miles an hour.
That's spaceship.
It's probably the
1970, where they were coming to Earth to steal our organs. Show the second one now, too, Bill. That one actually has an airplane come in behind it, and you'll see it interact by moving away from the aircraft. Bill, can you play that second video that I sent you? See if we can get that going. Okay, actually, this is different. This is a Ring doorbell. Now, watch closely. Did you catch that? Did you see that go zipping by?
I did see something zip by. Yeah.
Okay, so now my thought on that, and thanks to Meg, fan of the show here in Belfouche, who sent that. Let's see that video doorbell once again, because I have a theory on that. If you look right over the intersection as the car turns, keep an eye there in the sky, and you'll see. Did you see that?
Yep.
Go up like that. I'm thinking insect. What do you guys think?
Yeah, good possibility that you had something like that caught the light. You have a street light.
Because there was another one that went right in front of the camera,
Yeah.
what looked like the camera lens.
And of course, I wasn't there to see it, but because we had that second one come on the same trajectory, and that was clearly an insect, I thought it might have been a bug playing with that. Bill, I did have that one other video of.
There we go.
Yeah, my guess is if you were able to enlarge that video, you would probably see different color lights going around in the center of that craft as well. I can't hear you, Padre.
Yeah, Dan, you're going to have to come off your mic is muted when the video comes on. Just unplug it.
While Dan is getting that back, I wanted to just get back to you about one thing that got me curious. Did you think this whole thing was demonic about what you were experiencing?
No, absolutely not. I never got a bad vibe from any of the crafts I've seen. Absolutely not. It was just that frequency I attribute to UAPs, aliens, whatever you want to call them, and that experience I had the other night, where I was paralyzed. I wasn't sure if I was dealing with an alien entity or an evil entity. That's why I went to my team psychic, who's amazing, and she said it had nothing to do with the aliens that I'm seeing, the UFOs. This had something to do with the location I was going. She always calls me whenever I plan on doing something. I never tell her, and then she always sees it, and she'll call me and she'll say, "Where you're going? What are you up to? This is what I'm seeing." This time I called her and said, "This is what I just experienced." I've had a million crazy experiences over my lifetime. Never anything like that. I've only had one premonition in my life. That was the night my father died, and that came true. I seen him go by, waving goodbye after he passed, and this felt like that. Like it was like, and she said, "Yeah, that wasn't a dream. That was a premonition." And I was like, okay. It was weird. It was totally weird, and I just didn't know what it referenced. Did it have something to do with all of this video that I've been taking, or did it have something to do with the location that I was going to? But I didn't think the aliens were evil. No.
Al, do you find yourself at different times your state of awareness is higher than others, or do you kind of think you're operating at a fairly steady level? I'm not probably phrasing that correctly. It's obvious to me that you probably have good sensitivity to these things. What you just described to me with the premonition of your dad and then this feeling almost makes you think it's something like your dad letting you know this is not good, and you got that feeling, and that's what made you talk to your team psychic. To me, those things seem, once you're kind of connected into that, a lot of what you're talking about reminds me of things that I've heard about the Phoenix Lights, people that experienced what went on there. It's not the same words, but it's the same kind of emotional bonding to the event, and then sensitivities that occurred with it. So, I mean, you don't seem like you're losing sleep, or you're operating on this because this is just how your karma is working out.
Yeah, no, I don't lose sleep over
Is that a fair
anything. I don't
assessment?
claim to be psychic in any stretch of the imagination.
That's good.
But I have these feelings that come to me. Sometimes I'll smell stuff, I'll taste stuff, I'll touch stuff. I'll hear voices in my head that'll tell me to touch this and then touch that, and then I'll see an image in my mind's eye of something. I can't do that stuff at will. It comes to me when it's supposed to come to me. So I don't claim to be psychic, but every psychic that I know says I have all these abilities, and not that I claim to be one, and like I said, I've seen a lot of craft over my years, and there's only been one or two that's ever given me a bad vibe. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Where I actually got off the road or took the long way home because I didn't want to go through a certain area of the woods to get home. I've never really had any bad experiences with alien crafts or stuff like that. So I don't know. I honestly don't know where these feelings come from, this energy comes from. I just think it's an energy signature that I could tap into at times, and that's it.
What do you think?
Let me ask you this, Al. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, what do you think the connection is between cryptids and UAP?
Intention. I think intention is a big thing. I think consciousness is a big thing. Frequency, vibration, all of these things play a factor. And as a paranormal investigator, cryptozoologist, ufologist, we use all of these senses and these abilities to make communication with all of these things that we're trying to communicate with, depending whether it be a cryptid, an alien, or a ghost, So those are the connections for me. That's what I truly believe.
What do you think the intention is?
It's your intention, whatever your intention is. If you're doing the CE5 and you have 100 people in the park, and everybody's intention is to make contact with alien craft, and the alien craft picks up on this frequency and comes down to see what all of this is, like they say, the power of prayer, especially in like a mass with a lot of people, there's a lot of power in that, and I think it's the same thing.
You mentioned frequency, Al, and that something I want to ask you is: do you think there's any side effects that you've had? And the reason I say this, let me just put this out there. People who have had these encounters similar to yours, they have found that they have taken MRIs of their brains and found white spots on their brains. They brought them to Gary Nolan down at Stanford University, and he more or less looks at those MRIs and finds it similar to what they call the Havana syndrome, where there's a frequency that they feel there's a ringing, or a frequency that they get, headaches that they get, sometimes blurred vision, things of that nature. Are you experiencing any of that by any chance?
No, but I did have cancer at one point, and I was wondering if all of the paranormal activity or the high strangeness that I investigate had something to do with that, because I never smoked, so.
I mean, in terms of causality?
Yeah.
That's new to me. I've never heard of cancer turning into a,
I mean, there have been cases, though, haven't there, of people who've encountered UAP close encounter and then come down with serious health problems, including cancer?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, sure.
Yes. Yeah. Well, what about the environment? Excuse me, Al. What about the environment you live in? Is there any toxic materials, or did it have a history of toxic materials in the area? I originally come from Central Western PA, and when I got back from the army, and I really just wanted to move out west, which I ended up doing. But for the first year I was back from the service, I worked for the Department of HEW, Social Security, and it blew my mind the number of people that were filing for black lung claims from having worked in the coal industry. So obviously that was a toxic environment. How about where you're at?
Not up here in the Hudson Valley. I mean, I'm sure growing up in the city and in those old tenement apartment buildings, there was lead paint and stuff like that. And I did work for the post office for 32 years. And one of our facilities was really, really old. And I'm sure there was asbestos in the walls. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm sure I've been exposed to toxins over the years for sure.
When you've been in contact with any of these things, has there been any kind of a message delivered to you that you could share with us?
No, I don't ever remember. I don't ever remember getting a message from anything. No.
How about dreams, Al? Get dreams that you can't account? Weird dreams?
Yeah, I mean,
War?
no, I never had anything like that. No, I mean, I've had weird dreams where
That's cheerful there, Chris.
Well, but it's true. A lot of abductees have gotten dreams of disasters here on Earth,
and
like
the
a
world
foretelling.
scenarios. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, nothing like that. Absolutely not.
So, well,
yeah, I mean,
I guess in Don's what he's saying, that's a damn good thing you're not getting those dreams. I guess. So.
Yeah, I think it was what's his name? Not Dr. Mack. Oh man, the guy who was the artist down in the
Bud
village.
Hopkins.
Bud Hopkins said, "My brother's been after me to get regressed since the beginning of time," and I always said no because Bud Hopkins said if you could sleep good at night, then don't do it because you never know what you're going to stir up. And so I've never ever gotten regressed, but we had a couple of incidences where we've lost time on investigations where we had seen a UFO come into the investigation. And at one point, I was going to sit down with Rosemary Ellen Guiley. I don't know if you guys know who she is, but she's an old author, and she lived in Connecticut, and she was going to regress me. And I was going to do a private regression with her because we became really good friends and I trusted her. And unfortunately, the week I was supposed to go over her house to do it, she passed away, so I never got it done.
Yeah, do you think you ever been abducted?
I've had two abduction experiences. Yes.
Would you mind sharing that?
Okay.
We only got a few minutes left, but
real quick, without getting into the whole gist of everything. Halloween. My daughter's 8. She's Dorothy, the Wizard of Oz. My son's a little cowboy. I'm in my bed. It was a very, very cold night. I was in my bed. A light comes through the window. Out of my body. I'm having like an out-of-body experience. I'm sitting on my headboard, and there in the bedroom are 2 5-foot aliens levitating me up out of the bed, and they're bringing me towards the window, and I'm asking myself, how are they going to get me through the window? The window's closed, and just as I had that thought, my daughter starts screaming in the next room, and I had a 125-pound German Shepherd raced into the room. My wife raced into the room. I raced into the room. The aliens blinked out. The light was gone that was in the room. And we raced into the kids' room, which is right next to ours. And she's wrapped around my son's legs, holding him down. And I go, what's going on? And she said, Dorothy came in through the light and told me she wanted to take Nicholas to the light, but she would bring him back before daybreak. And she had a tug of war with Dorothy until she started screaming and everybody woke up. And because of what she was telling me, she kind of validated what was going on with me in the other room. So I think they were taking my son and me at the same time. Now, I did a show with Mark D'Antonio and Ben Hansen, Alien Invasion of the Hudson Valley. And at the end of the show, they took my blood and they came out to be HR negative. I was the only one on the cast that had HR negative blood. I don't know what that means. If it means anything at all, I don't know. But that was that's the short version of one of my experiences.
It's interesting. Yeah. I saw in the notes in here that, did you have missing time near Nuclear Lake?
Yes.
Is that the same? That's a different incident then.
Oh yeah, that's a whole different incident. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we had, I think, 2 hours missing that night. But it was weird because I did a time check when I seen it, and I did a time check when we got to the second location, and sometime between the time we got there, we called our psychic, and then we called the psychic back, thinking we'd calling her back like 10 minutes later, because we sound like there was a family walking through the woods in the middle of the night and on Hallows Eve, and she said we had a time space continuum event, and those people weren't going to be there till the next day. But we were calling her 2 hours later, and we were all under the assumption that we had just called her like 10 minutes before. So it was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy.
That's right. Now, Nuclear Lake, if I'm correct, you're not allowed to go near it, right?
No, you could go to Nuclear Lake. It's actually it's
Okay.
a federal park. Absolutely, yeah. They don't advertise it. There's no advertising for it. It's not much of a park. It's just a big lake with a trail that goes around it. But the Appalachian Trail tends to go through there, and there's a lot of high strangeness there. UFOs, Bigfoot, you name it.
Al, let me ask you this, because this has figured in over the years to some of the investigations that I've been involved in. Are there many reports of people going into these areas and simply vanishing, missing people, going into some of these areas and boom, they're just gone?
You know,
No, not that
hold
I
on
know
one second,
of.
Al. Al, we're going to take a short break. That was a great question, and we're going to pick it up on the back part of the show right after this break. Folks, stay with us. We're going to be with you in just 3 minutes. We're going to take a small commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected. Only at KGRADB.com.
We are back with Al. And Don, you had a question for him? And Don's not back. But anyways, go ahead and answer that question. Yeah, there he is.
No, to the best of my knowledge, the locations that I actually go and investigate in the woods, I don't have any missing people on them. No.
Yeah, I think he's like referring to David Politis's 411.
Right. Yeah, no, I understand.
Does the Hudson Valley have that happening?
Not to my best of my ability. Honestly, I don't know. I never heard anybody discuss anybody missing in the Hudson Valley. Yes, in the Adirondacks it has happened, but not as far as I know here in the Mid Hudson Valley, where people like hunters or hikers and stuff like that have gone on a trail and then never came back.
My last question before we change the topic a little bit. Have you ever seen where there was an incident, maybe with a cryptid or Bigfoot or somewhere's in there, that they brought in a special team that you've seen? Because that actually, there was a story about Lake Placid. In Lake Placid, there was a missing person that happened up there, which is not unusual, but the circumstances of this missing person was very unusual. And they brought in a military team. And this is the first time I've ever seen it in law enforcement stuff, but they actually brought in, nobody knows who they were. They weren't supposed to talk to them, for what I understand from people who, were involved. But they brought in a military team that swept that area. So that was kind of unusual. I'm wondering, I don't really study Bigfoot and that much, but I'm wondering, have you ever heard of that type of thing happening?
How do you know they were military, Chris?
Because they came in from what I was told, I wasn't there, of course, but what I was told, they came in a military helicopter. They all had camos. They acted like military,
armed?
from what I understand. They could have been armed? Contractors. It could have been, but they weren't police. That's for sure.
Were they armed?
Oh, God, yeah, they were armed. Yeah. Because one of the things that he was explaining to me was that these guys came out of a helicopter. They brought them in by helicopter. It looked like a Huey or a copter like that, I guess. And they're all armed with rifles. He doesn't know what an M16 is, but he said they had military rifles and stuff. That's how he described it. So, and they swept into the woods, and they just had everybody stay out, and they were gone. And then they came back and got in the helicopter, or however they left. I imagine it was the helicopter, and they were gone.
Did they ever find anybody?
No, they didn't even report anything. That's why it was so freaky.
Yeah, that's
weird.
Is
that it was unbelievable that this kind of story. And in a place like Lake Placid, that's where they had the Olympics and everything else.
Yeah.
You would have thought that this would have been high profile enough, but it wasn't. It wasn't anything anybody questioned or anything like that.
Yeah, Lake Placid is a small town. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's a small town. The only time it's ever in the world's view is when New York does the Winter Olympics up there. Otherwise, it's a very, very quaint little town, and people kind of keep to themselves up there,
You used to have a SAC base, though.
Yeah.
Very close.
Really? I did not know that, Commander. By the way, did you ever hear of anything like that, Commander, of a military team looking for missing people?
You put me on a very strange spot, Chris. I've moved people like that all the time at one part of my life.
Well, that's why I'm asking you the question.
Yes, I've heard of teams and sweeps like that. Not necessarily for a missing person, but yes, that profile is not uncommon.
Is the person that told me this pretty accurate in how this thing developed? They go in, they don't really talk to people, or they don't have stuff like that? They go in, do their job, and they leave.
Yeah, in general, that would be if there was something specific they were after. I mean, some of that behavior sounds like the folks that would be part of what they call a mess team if there's a nuclear emergency. But they generally have much more equipment when they roll, and there's people flying over the top while they're doing that kind of sweep. Those are the folks that respond to nuclear emergencies. You know, anything that's being recovered, split, that may be a possible device that those folks are out there. If there's a specific target, that part of the world around Lake Placid has had some very interesting criminal cases, criminal activities that have gone on in the past in that part of the world. And as I said, there was an Air Force base very close to Lake Placid that was a nuke base.
Wow. How about you, Don? Ever hear of anything like that in your times?
When I was active, no. But recently, and this kind of goes back to the cryptid character of the Dog Man, I have read some articles purporting, and how real they are, I don't know. Okay, but the bottom line was, and this happened in the Appalachian mountain range, which actually is where I came from originally. People went missing. The police went in. They did searches, etc. Brought dogs in. You name it. This is what I've read. Okay, I have no firsthand knowledge of this, but there were creatures, cryptid creatures, not Sasquatch type creatures, but animal, dog, wolf type humanoid creatures, and some special military teams were brought in. The local cops were gone, and they sent them in to do an S&D, a search and destroy. Now, if that's real or not, I have no way of knowing, but it was interesting. So that's been the only thing, Chris, that I'm aware of from that standpoint.
How about you, Padre?
I think you might be muted there, boss.
If I'm not mistaken, there must have been at least 6 high-quality documentaries about large crocodilian creatures inhabiting Lake Placid. In fact, I think we have a photo that Bill has that shows us.
Yes, I just like to point out, though, the Lake Placid in the movie, as I just put into the chat, was in Maine, not New York.
Oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me, gentlemen. My geography was off.
But I think it's really fun that we're getting around to the Padre and we're talking about cryptids and teams to go after cryptids.
I don't think it's crocodile, because it gets very, very cold in Lake Placid. Can they survive up there?
Well, that was discussed in the movie. I guess there's a particular sort of a hazardous waste thing that makes them, warmer and grow super big. The typical plot in a movie. But I mean, they're fun to watch. Some highly attractive individuals meet their demise in gross ways by being shot down by large creatures. But speaking of cryptids, on a more serious note, we have out here a number of Native American reservations. And if you look at a map of cryptid sightings, particularly Bigfoot, you will see that the preponderance of the sightings take place on the reservation. And of course, the Lakota people on the Pine Ridge Reservation have had several instances there. And their shamans, of course, say they have a brotherly relationship with these large hairy cryptids. Going way back before white men came to this country. And if you go back in history, these things have appeared all over the planet with or without UAPs. But what I have found just in my looking at these large hairy hominids is there appears to be a distinction between those that appear associated with UAP and those that just appear to hunters, hikers, and so forth. The ones with UAP, and gentlemen, correct me if I'm wrong, appear to have red eyes or red eyes that glow and are sometimes seen with something attached to them, a metallic box, something that might indicate that they're under the control of something else. Does this resonate with any of you?
Yep, I've heard similar kind of a breakdown, and you have more.
And they usually are described as 3 toes.
Yes.
As opposed to the more natural Sasquatch that have 5.
Yep. Good point, Don. Now, on the reservation, an encounter with these things is thought to be a good omen. They say they have rules about how to interact with them, largely leave them alone. Don't bother them. They won't bother you. But if you are privileged to have had an encounter, it usually portends something good. So, I mean, there's that aspect of a sighting.
The only thing I know, Padre, is as far as with the Bigfoot, as far as UFOs go, they've been seen coming out of crafts that have landed, and they sort of act like guards. They just kind of hang around the craft while, the grays come out. We've had a couple reports of Bigfoots, exiting and entering the crafts. And so people do believe that they're connected with the UFO theory.
I had read a report from one of the Pacific Coast states, might have been Northern California, where somebody said that they saw a craft almost like abducting a Bigfoot, that it did not want to be associated with them, but it swooped down and took it. Have you heard of similar reports?
Are you asking me or Al?
Anybody?
Oh,
I've heard reports of them being abducted as well. Yeah.
Any that you can share with some specificity? I don't have much.
Not off the top of my head, Padre. I remember, over the years reading reports of people seeing a UFO and then a light coming out of it, and seeing a large ape-like creature being pulled up in the light source. Yeah. And then the light shutting off and the craft zipping away. So, campers and hikers and stuff like that have reported stuff like that over the years. But, nothing that I was ever able to go and investigate and talk to the people themselves now.
if I could, I want to change the subject. I want to pivot to something that's come out in the news, and I want to ask everybody about this. The Padre and I talked about it on a couple of shows ago, but we really didn't get in depth into it. I want to talk about this new word called immaculate constellation that now is brewing all over the place. And I'm going to play this video, and I want to get everybody's opinion of this. So let me get this video.
A 5-minute introduction.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Good morning.
There is a document that will be entered into the congressional record today. Mr. Tim Burchett from Tennessee has this document, and we just distributed it to every member up here on the dais of this document. But this is going to be the original document from the Pentagon about Immaculate Constellation that Michael Schellenberger delivered to Congress today. So thank you, Mr. Schellenberger, for this information. We are all reading it in real time now, and Mr. Burchett will enter it into the record. But 12 pages about this unacknowledged special access program that your government says does not exist.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairwoman. I want to thank the Chairwoman and the Chairman both for their continued support.
The first section talks about the unacknowledged special access program called Immaculate Constellation, and the second section about USG imagery intelligence. And Representative Luna just told me if I say Immaculate Constellation, I'll be on some list, maybe a FISA warrant. So come at me, bro, I guess. But
in a time of heightened distrust of our government institutions, I believe more transparency is not only needed, but is possible. And obviously we can respect national security limits, but we also have to provide our constituents with the information and oversight that they have tasked us for.
So I have Nancy Mace's document here, and I just want to read this one paragraph, and then I want to get everybody's opinion. Immaculate Constellation primary mission is collecting imagery intelligence on unidentified aerial phenomenon and ARV-RV reproduction vehicles utilizing tasked and untasked U.S. military intelligence resources as part of a network of SAPs linked to non-human intelligence and UAP technology. Immaculate Constellation acts as a nexus for collecting, analyzing, and disseminating intelligence on the activities, capabilities, locations of anomalous aerospace threats that originate from foreign or unidentified sources. So, Commander, I want to start with you as a pilot and former military person. Here's this program that nobody's ever known about, and all of a sudden it's now out in the public, and they're basically saying in this program that, yeah, we're reproducing vehicles. Yeah, we got imagery intelligence we're analyzing, the whole bit. What do you think?
The key thing you brought in there was it's linking to special access program, the SAPs. So you have a overarching project name, code name, operational designation, Immaculate Constellation. It delineates these activities, but it really doesn't tell you anything. It points to all the things that we have all talked about, all the conjecture that's been raised, other points and pieces, but there's no definitive lineup in there that tells you where it's based, who's in charge of it. It gives you a kind of a menu, but nothing, you're nowhere near the kitchen, and you're definitely not going to get served a meal.
I like that. That's good. And stuff. Don, what do you think of Immaculate Constellation? Is this now a big breakthrough?
No, not even close. Like I stated in my paper that I wrote on disclosure, whatever this phenomenon is, all right, at the very core of it, only if even 5 people today know what that is, okay, there's been a reason that they decided beyond normal military protocol that it cannot be released to the public. What that reason is, I don't know. I speculated, as you guys know.
Sure.
But I could be all wet. But that core secret is surrounded by an SAP, a SAP. And that's why all this disclosure business is nothing anymore than a teenager masturbating in the middle of the night. It feels great, okay? But, all right, you're never going to get anywhere with it. And that's basically what we're dealing with.
Oh, yay. Padre, you know, you and I talked about this maybe some spiritual or demonic or stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to ask you, do you think maybe that's a ploy to keep it away from what they're really doing?
Personally, no. I think that, you know, when we're talking about what these things are, more than one thing can be true at once. When we talk about the demonic aspects of it, I'm more interested as far as the spiritual, the fear level, the after effects that these things create. I think those are indications of a demonic entity. I would think that what Al encountered in his room was demonic, and I think that people who have these night terrors or have these things that supposedly come into their room and take them, I think that that's demonic. I think it certainly falls in line with historical reports going back thousands of years when you get to incubus and succubus and so forth, that something similar is going on there. But when we talk about these other things, these crafts that do the extraordinary appearances, I've got Operation Constellation right here. And there's one report, a military report, I'd like to share here from it.
Sure.
And get your thoughts on it. Just so we know our military acronyms, I believe CVN is an aircraft carrier. Is that correct, Cobra?
Yes. The C stands for carrier, V stands for aviation, N stands for nuclear.
All right. So this was a close encounter by a nuclear aircraft carrier then. While on active duty in the Pacific, flight deck personnel working night duty experienced a close encounter with a spherical UAP of medium to large size. On-duty flight deck crew observed a small orange-red sphere maneuvering at high altitude above the CVN. Shortly after first observation, the UAP descended rapidly from high altitude to a position directly above the flight deck of the CVN, approximately 100 to 200 yards above. The UAP maintained altitude and matched speed with the underway CVN for an uncertain period. Observing personnel reported altered perceptions of time during the close encounter. The UAP appeared to emit a soft orange-red light, which bizarrely did not illuminate the ocean or flight deck of the CVN, despite the visual appearance of intense luminosity. The surface of the UAP was observed to be dynamic, roiling like the surface of the sun. The UAP took no reported actions during the encounter, only maintaining a close proximity to the CVN. After an uncertain period, the UAP shot into the air, disappeared at a point high above the CVN. Observing personnel felt as if they snapped out of a trance and had a sense of profound unease. The incident report concludes with noting that the CVN had not responded in any way to what was perceived as a hostile interception by the UAP. That's serious stuff. You know, we're talking about a nuclear aircraft carrier here, and something that gets that close and that low, given all the defensive parameters they have, that's very troubling. Thoughts, gentlemen?
Well, once again, if I may, you have a UFO UAP monitoring a nuclear, well, in this case, power plant. Okay. This is one of the biggest bones of contention I have with these latest congressional hearings. We have some of the most detailed, in the public arena, I might add, accounts of nuclear incursions by UFO UAPs on record. But yet, Congress has not heard about any of that. Or if they have, only in the briefest of passing. Chris and I both noted on the original hearings, when David Grouch was asked the question, have there been any deaths attributed to UFO UAP sightings? And he stated firmly, yes, not a single person followed up on that. Now, maybe it's only because I was a cop. Chris was a cop. But that would have been the first damn thing I bored in on those people with.
Yep.
Okay. What? You're telling me human beings have died and you're just skipping over that? This is why I'm sorry, gentlemen, but I don't see these most recent hearings as anything beneficial. I am convinced it's simply more of a dog and pony show for the masses, bread and circuses. That's all it is, because nothing profound has come out of this. Nothing.
Commander, before I ask you to comment on that, can I play something for you real fast? Because it relates to what Don is saying.
Panel, we had Grush, and he had testified to say that some of these were interdimensional beings. Can you speak on that at all?
Ma'am, I'm not qualified, certainly as a scientist or otherwise, to speculate points of origin. I looked at everything from a scientific perspective. So if you look at, for example, instantaneous acceleration, which was one of the observables of the program that I belong to, ATIP, the human body can withstand about 9 G forces for a short period of time before you suffer negative biological consequences, blackouts and ultimately redouts and even death. Comparison, our best technology, the F-16, which is one of this older platform, but one of our most highly maneuverable aircraft, manned aircraft, made by General Dynamics, can perform about 17 or 18 G forces before you start having structural failure, meaning that the airframe begins to disintegrate while you're flying. The vehicles we're talking about are performing in excess of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 Gs.
So are you, I guess, would it be safe to infer that they're living craft?
I'm not prepared at this point to state for the record is something alive or not, because even that definition is hard. There was a time in science we thought that life required oxygen.
At one point,
and we now
you
know
had said
that's
that there has been harmful activity or aggressive activity. Has any of the activity been aggressive, been hostile in your reports?
I know of multiple colleagues of mine that got physically injured, and the activity. And I got
by UAPs or by people within the federal government?
Both.
Okay,
Yeah.
So there has been activity by alien or non-human technology and or beings that has caused harm to humans.
I can't get into the specifics in an open environment, but at least the activity that I personally witnessed, and I have to be very careful here because they tell you never to acknowledge tradecraft, right? So what I personally witnessed, myself and my wife, was very disturbing.
Commander, your comments on that video?
Oh my God, you just like to watch my head explode. we say stuff, but we don't say anything. Okay. If you two were doing an interrogation and this is how your person you were doing the interview was acting, you'd either get up and slap them if it was the appropriate time, or you would you would drill in on each part of the words. Mr. Alessandro makes the remark about the F-16. Okay. And he says built by General Dynamics, which is kind of true, but someone who's in the Pentagon right now would not refer to it that way. And I know it drives the audience crazy when I pick these little tiny points up, but it's built by Lockheed now. That company has been sucked up into Lockheed for a long time. And you just don't refer to it as a General Dynamics aircraft the way he sped that. It really throws me off when the Navy Admiral, who is into the more oceanographic part of it, talks about the SIPR being a Navy SIPR. It's not. The entire SIPR program is the entire DoD program. These are very strange remarks for people of the levels that they're at, where they're operating, to use clumsy, incorrect language in a congressional hearing. Now, why was his wife there?
That's a great question.
What's going on there? Is she another service member? What is going on there? So
how does his wife experience this?
When I hear this kind of stuff, but I can't go into it. But let me tell you, my wife and I were really scared. What? The actual bad word, because I don't want to get in trouble with the Padre. I already have enough novenas that I have to do with him after an average show. Okay. What are we what's happening here? It's not getting to the to any ground truth. It's sensational placards that we're throwing up there, lines that we're throwing out to get into a news cycle, I guess, and think that we've moved the ball. And I'm going to tell you one more thing, and I've said this consistently because I know I'm probably still on the minority. Tic Tac, wherever the technology came from, ours. Activity over CVN, never calling it an aircraft carrier. Weird, very weird way that's written up. But the Tic Tac engaged once again on a carrier battle group. And everyone said, well, couldn't possibly be manned. It couldn't be manned if it's flying like the F-16, which is built now by Lockheed. Formerly, it was originally created, it was built by General Dynamics. That is correct. My point is, we keep adding and saying, well, obviously it must be flown. Lou is correct. 9Gs, you're probably going to be passing out, sustaining those kind of Gs. You're not going to have consciousness. So how could it be flown? I contend we're not flying these aircraft the way that I fly aircraft presently. If you have a vehicle like this, you are working in a set of physics that is not the physics that I am operating under. I am not bending air. I'm not pushing molecules over curved surfaces to create lift. I'm generating some kind of power field around me. And that means whatever is happening on the inside of that craft is not connected to what is happening on the outside of that.
Now, here's my other question for you. Could these be drones?
Absolutely.
And the other thing that struck me funny is they asked him if this thing was basically alive or had a conscience. That struck me kind of weird. Because
all right, I'll give you something that I have thought for a long time. I've kind of alluded to it. If you're talking about this kind of advanced technology that I envision that we are playing around with, and the reason we don't see more of it, it may be too destabilizing. It's probably so expensive, and it's probably causing some issues. If you think back a couple guests that we had on here, the kinds of interactive force field type disturbances, the EMI, the things that he experienced, there may be some problems in the shielding on the inside, but you can only do it for so long.
Well, I can testify to a certain dynamic where a certain criminal case was mentioned by yours truly, and one of our hosts imploded and was gone. So, mysterious things happen.
So coming back to the center here, I think you have a force field in there, but this part about it being a living, breathing creature, we're approaching that now with things like connecting human brains to the computer technology. It's been successfully done to some level with Mr. Musk. So if you have one of these craft, you are probably not manipulating it with the kinds of physical levers and switches that I use in the aircraft that I fly. You may be connected cerebrally to the aircraft and having
like a mind melt you're talking about?
Sure, that you're connecting up. And for years, and I'm talking from about the 70s, this was attempted many, many times. Popular books of the 70s and 80s where they talked about trying to come up with physiological ways. So, because when you're starting to approach a blackout, when you're approaching 7HEs, you're still awake. You just can't see. The blood
Clint Eastwood did a movie on that called Firefox.
Correct.
That's right.
But what the Firefox didn't tell you about was technology where they were giving drugs to pilots in flight to help them counteract what they were experiencing.
Ooh. Yeah. So, Commander, I know that this question is going to be very hard if you can answer it all, but do you think we've conquered this technology?
I think we're poking around at it. We probably have some pretty good capabilities. I've told you before, three things come to mind on this. Wherever the technology comes from, I think there's a good case to say some of it's been recovered. We also have good indications, historically looking back, that the Nazis had done some pretty advanced technology as well. So anti-gravity might be there. If you have the capability, if you even have had this contact, well, why aren't we all flying around? Why don't we have this available? It's the same reason that if you came up tomorrow with and I believe it exists, that I believe that there is things out there that folks like Tesla worked on that produced a much freer, a much greater energy source with less side effects that are out there. Why don't we have it? Because we've built an economic system on one that's present. And we're not going to turn that one off until we're ready to turn it off, because there's too much money and too much upheaval. And just like we talked about earlier, when we talk about UAP/UFO, cryptids, the other phenomena that go on in the sense, they are all connected here. And that's part of it. And as we play our games, country to country, going on with this, if we came out with a technology that is so offsetting to the rest of the world's governments and military, you better have enough of it that you can absolutely neutralize all the offensive materials that they have. Meaning what I'm pointing towards is ballistic missiles. Do we have enough to do that? Do we have that ability to dock everything out at one time and say, okay, that's it. This is the new rule book. This is the new world order. Or are we continually working, trying to get an edge up on everybody else and keep humming the tune and having economies grind on and do the things that we're doing?
Gotcha.
I think that there's a.
Listen, Al, I want to ask you this same question. What do you know about Immaculate Constellation?
Today was the first time I ever heard of it. I heard it on a news report today for the first time, and then now you're talking about it tonight. So it's like totally caught me off guard. Never heard of it. Never heard that term before. No, nothing about the project whatsoever.
That's the flavor of the month. Padre.
I have another report here from Immaculate Constellation that deals with an aircraft encounter, and I'm really interested to hear Commander Cobra's perspective on this. This one that is in the document that was filed in the congressional record says that metallic orbs intercepted an F-22 on a continental United States air surveillance and control mission. While performing a routine airspace surveillance and control mission in the eastern air defense sector, an F-22 fighter observed multiple UAP contacts at mission altitude. Moving to intercept, the F-22 pilot noted multiple metallic orbs, slightly smaller than a sedan, hovering in place. Upon vectoring toward the UAPs, a smaller formation of the metallic orbs accelerated at rapid speed toward the F-22, which was unable to establish radar locks on the presumed hostile UAPs. The F-22 broke trajectory and attempted to evade, but was intercepted and boxed in by approximately 3 to 6 UAPs. One UAP maneuvered in proximity, less than 12 meters, to the area directly starboard of the cockpit. There, the UAP established a rigid spatial relationship with the F-22, maintaining its exact position and orientation parallel with the F-22's cockpit, despite multiple evasive rolls and maneuvers. Surrounded by the presumed hostile UAPs, the F-22 was forced out of the mission area under the escort of the UAP formation. Commander, when we hear about an orb locked, like it's attached to an aircraft, and this aircraft is performing presumably violent air combat maneuvers to shake it.
Sure.
Wouldn't that sphere have to have some insight into the pilot's mind to anticipate in order to maneuver without a lag time?
It might. That would obviously be a good line of inquiry. It also might have the ability that it's operating it would be what a supercomputer level to calculate the measurements of the aircraft making the maneuvers. So what I'm saying is that you have, it has some kind of a sensor. It's constantly reading all that out. Just like when you're playing basketball and you're fanning somebody and you're trying to keep them from moving, and you can keep that perimeter around them. You can sense what they're moving. You're also listening. You're using all your senses to figure out where they're going to be. And generally, if you are good at predicting it, people that are faster at something, they do that. That's what this sounds like. You have a very high speed computing capability that is reading it. It also may have some inference that it's getting information from the rest of the network of the things that are flying around it. Now, I'm using concepts from things that we're doing now that I know of, that we have aircraft that are swarming. We look at the small UAVs that you see doing these light shows where they're a sun and then they turn into a dragon and then they swarm and they fly around. that is amazing that we're at that level. And I'm talking multiple hundreds of aircraft that are, all flying around doing this and reacting. And, generally they don't like to do heavy winds, but they can react to the atmospheric inputs. So if you have something that's really advanced on that, or it's a technology that's not ours, that's doing that, it doesn't surprise me that you can do that you get into that kind of a position, you're able to lock on. And it could almost be something that is as simple that it is holding almost like a magnetic lock to, and I'm not going to say that it for sure that it has anything to do with magnetism, but you set up a force field that connects as well, instead of just repelling, that you can do whatever you want. It's going to maintain that position. It's going to stay there. Just like if there was a piece of metal holding the two of them together. But what you bring up, Padre, absolutely. I don't think the pilot, though, is probably giving enough indications fast enough, especially if you're frustrated and your brain is locked off. I can easily imagine you're thinking about 2 or 3 things further down the road that you want to do as you're doing physical maneuvers. And in the case of the F-22 and some of the advanced airplanes, there are things that help the pilot perform maneuvers that are aircraft based, that they're part of the aircraft itself is giving you cues on what to do, information on what to do to try to break that. It gives me the thoughts, though, from this kind of a report that there was something purposely intentful to move it out of that area, either to see if it could do it or it didn't want to have something else to be seen.
Yeah, but
the rest of it I'd like to hear is why the F-22 was there, what the mission was. Why were they there? What was the thing that they were in that cap for? Cap being a combat air patrol.
Let me ask you this, Commander. If this was aggressively moving the way it was, it wasn't aggressive.
It wasn't aggressive. It was,
what's that?
The aircraft was defensively trying to get away from this. So if
Yeah,
that's
but
what
wouldn't
you
it
mean
be
aggressive,
fired upon? Wouldn't the aircraft fire on it?
well, if it's right behind the pilot's head, no, it can't fire on it.
No, yeah, that's true. But I mean,
So
as it was,
what happened is by the description that Padre put out, this orb thing got into a position in formation behind the cockpit, right over the spine, right over the back line of the plane. And whatever the plane did, whatever the 22 was doing, this was able to maintain that almost fixed space position from the airplane, no matter what it did.
Don, your thoughts?
Well, I'm not an aviator. I would not even ever begin to question somebody like Cobra. But it would seem to me if this guy was on some type of mission, my first question would be, where the hell was his wingman? Did he have one? If not, why not?
You read my mind there, Don, because that's the other one I was going to throw in at the end.
I would be asking about that. Now, look, they won't tell you this in places like congressional hearings, but you can bet your bippy, and let me grab that from Laughing back in the 60s. You can bet your bippy that there have been hostile encounters with our aircraft and whatever the hell these things are. It happened in the former Soviet Union. I was one of the first Westerners when she got over here to interview Colonel Marina Popovich. Okay. Traveled down to Arizona. She was out here in LA. She went down to Arizona. She was giving a talk down there. She barely spoke any English. So obviously she had several translators with her. But when I had a chance over 2 days to interview her, she told me account after account of Soviet MiG fighters being swatted out of the air, okay, by these things with hardly any effort whatsoever. Now, you got to remember, if you were around then, if you were paying attention, the Soviet Union genuinely had an iron curtain around them. you got a strange aircraft, unidentified aircraft, overflying their airspace. Their first inclination was to send some fighters up and shoot your ass right out of the sky. And they tried that. And they got knocked out of the sky. So it didn't take us long over here in the early 50s when Harry Truman was still the president, okay? The original orders were for our aircraft to shoot them down. We wanted to see what the hell we were dealing with. And we tried that, and we hit some. Now, whether they went down or not, I don't know. But in one case, I can remember an F-86 Saberjet, and this was on an account from Major Don Kehoe of NICAP, where this F-86, they were armed with 6 50 caliber machine guns in the nose, lit one of these things up, knocked material off of it. Then there was a major military effort to retrieve that material. So, but how many of our guys got knocked down? We don't know because they didn't talk about that. Very, very seldom did you hear about aircraft being lost in a situation like that. They would cover it up. So,
if I may
I can't. Let me just finish up, Dan. I can't imagine that this particular encounter that you read from this immaculate constellation is unique. I don't believe it is. I think it's happened a hell of a lot more than we think it did. Go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. If we go into the Wayback Machine here, wasn't there an incident early 50s called the Kinross Air Force?
Yes,
where
there certainly was.
An entire aircraft with its pilot and radar operator. What was it? F-89C Scorpion, I think.
Just Scorpion.
Yeah, and they're gone without a trace after being
Exactly.
vectored on the intercept.
Yes.
And there have been more, haven't there?
Yes. Well, the Pentagon initially tried to explain that away as a Canadian aircraft that flew down. This was over the Great Lakes. A Canadian aircraft that came down, and they were sent up to identify it. Well, the Canadians said, no. We didn't have any aircraft down there. It was a UFO encounter. It was originally picked up on radar. And the aircraft went up, and according to the reports, and Kehoe, and who's a man that should be talked about to this day. He was an Annapolis Naval graduate, an aviator, okay, the first director of the Central Intelligence Agency, Roscoe Hillenkotter, was his classmate, okay. So Kehoe had an in with a lot of military people when the U.S. Air Force was fumbling around trying to figure out what the hell to do about this problem. But Kehoe said the radar observers, the radar technicians, observed that Scorpion being absorbed into this unidentified. And they launched extensive search and rescue. Nothing was ever found from that aircraft. It's been gone ever since. So, yeah.
That's sobering.
It is very sobering. Al, you've been now listening to all this stuff. What is your opinion of what you've heard?
Yeah, no, I'm just thankful you guys let me stay just to listen. Amazing stuff tonight. Conversation's been amazing. I agree with Don on a ton of stuff, and I agree with Cobra. I agree with all you guys on all.
Well, that gets you invited back to the show, there.
No, you're not. You don't have to invite me back.
And if you do that 2 or 3 times, then you're going to be on here as a guest host.
Oh, God,
so just,
no.
Be careful. Be careful with the praise.
No. I agree with a lot of everything you guys said tonight. I truly do, and it's amazing information. And like I said, there's no doubt in my mind that project probably does exist, and it probably has existed for 25 years, and Cobra probably knows about it, but that's another story, you know.
Better watch that one. I want to pivot just a little bit because I wanted to ask about this because this is important. It's just amazing that this happened. Years ago, we had the lights over Washington. I'm sure everybody remembers that. And just recently, apparently somebody picked up some lights over Washington. I want to play this video. I want to get everybody's opinion if it's drones trying to make the thing or what they think it is. Hold on. So I want to start with you, Commander, being our resident pilot. What do you think those are?
Well, as our intrepid producer put into our comment chat there, yeah, that's very restricted airspace. So it to me looks like a formation of helicopters based on the little bit that I can see there. It's a very classy way of mixing in still frames into the video clip, you know, to give this appearance that they are stopped or moved or holding over there. So I'm not overly impressed by it. I'm not seeing a lot there. As I said, it just looks like a spaced out formation of helicopters at the speed it was moving. It did look like I could see a commercial aircraft coming in. It's a tough piece. And I wanted to throw in there, because I know we're running out of time. We're coming to the end of the show. And I'm making no fun, taking no jest at anybody. But there was a really, these discussions, these hearings, folks that are listening to the show, more of it's in the press. New Jersey had a pretty incredible UFO event, UAP event. And it turned out it was the Goodyear blimp. And I don't say that to cast any aspersion on the people that saw that going on, but if you looked at it, if you saw the way the video was coming off people's phones, the kind of weather conditions that he had, and the way the Goodyear blimp was lit up, because they do a lot of advertising with it, and the way it was lit up, it had that look, and people were really into it. They were, you could see people pulling over in a couple of the videos that I watched about it. And I think there's other activity around the Goodyear blimp that hasn't been completely explained. And we got a lot of military incursions with what I can think is probably somebody else's military technology being used to look at our bases and look at our aircraft in there. So I'm sorry, that one just does not get me going. Ooh, I just don't see it. There's not enough there for me to give me a real good idea that something other than pretty commonplace.
Don, there's been a lot of talk about Project Bluebeam coming back now. Everybody's thinking, oh my God, there was actually, somebody told me there was an actually alien invasion day.
The other day. Look,
I never even heard about it. What do you think of Project Bluebeam?
Well, before I even address that, let me tell you, I'm about to go on a very short, minute rant, okay? I got to tell you that I have been out of sorts for months now. Now, I blame a lot of it on all the chaos and what have you around the elections a month ago, all that kind of stuff. But look, the status of our country right now, and I'll just be very blunt, you guys know I am, we're in a bucket of shit, okay? We don't know who's in charge. We don't know what's going on. All these advanced weapons that we've been sending over to Europe for the Ukraine, those guys have been popping these missiles off into Russia. Russia's been shaking its nuclear saber, okay? Right now, well, guys, in 2 days, what's the anniversary in 2 days? Pearl Harbor, okay? Pearl Harbor. Russia, North Korea, Iran, okay, those people, and China, but maybe not so much China. It's got its own business in the Pacific. Basically, I am wondering if we could stand up to something like a surprise sneak hit. Putin has I mean, he's come right out on numerous occasions and threatened the use of atomic weapons. That's terrifying. And you hear nothing about it anywhere. Nobody in the press is talking about it. Okay. This administration, hey, let's be honest, it's in the shitter. The president's out of the country. The vice president's probably locked herself into a wine cabinet. Who the hell's running the country right now with all this activity going on? I got to tell you, I am not a happy camper, guys.
You hide it
You
well.
think the aliens are coming back or what? I mean,
perhaps a
bit. Dan, last minute. We got 1 minute left. Go ahead.
Totally agree with Commander Cobra's analysis. My first thought was helicopters. Definitely coming in behind the Capitol was an aircraft landing. Just to say that sometimes more than one thing can be true. And in this case, I think that as we look at these different sightings, some are definitely ours, some are easily explained, but then there's a whole bunch that we don't know about. And that's why we gather here on Thursday nights.
Well said.
Well said. Al, thank you for being with us. We'll have you come back again someday and enjoy yourselves. And to the listeners out there, thank you for being with us. You, as Commander Cobra would say, and he always says this, you are the greatest audience on the planet. And we all thank you for being here on Thursday nights to share this time with us. So with that, stay safe and good night.
Thank you, gentlemen.